Joining us for more on the erosion impacting Minnesota Key is Dr. Ping Wang, a geosciences professor at the University of South Florida, Charles Miller, a homeowner on Minnesota Key, and ABC 7 reporter Christopher Brantley. We also want to point out we tried to contact U.S. Congressman Tom Rooney, who represents the area, but he never responded. Dr. Wang, if I could start with you, and could you explain to our viewers what is the science that is happening here?
Okay, so, well, in a very general term, a beach erodes when more sand is leaving the beach than coming into the beach. And so you have a sand deficit. So the science really, the big science question would be what's causing the sand to leave the beach than coming into the beach. So
Is that a different answer in every community?
Yeah, it's a different answer at a different beach. So a particular beach, answer to a certain beach won't apply to a different location.
Because we've seen a lot of beach renourishment in our area here, and is it possible this could be an area where the kind of beach renourishment that we're seeing would not be effective there?
Well, I have done quite a bit of a beach nourishment study along, for example, Pinellas County, and I honestly believe and in this general area, West Central Florida coast, the beach nourishment has worked quite well, and it's been, I believe, more successful along our coast because we have a smaller wave, a lower tide. It tends to work quite well.
So this is something that could be done?
I believe so.
Charles, you must be awfully frustrated that it could be done, but it has not been done, where you see on this broadcast, quite regularly, we're reporting about other areas which are getting renourishment.
I'd like to say it's a real privilege, Alan, to be here tonight to talk about this issue. I'm just one person on Minnesota Key who's been there since 1993, and it is frustrating. And we just want to have a plan to get the sand back on Minnesota Key.
What would that plan be if you had, if you could get what you would want?
Well, an accelerated plan from Congressman Rooney to get an appropriation bill where they would pay at least 50% of the cost, the federal government, and then for the state to pay a large share and the county to pay some funds too.
What have you been told by state and county officials about that?
Well, right now, Charlotte County, I think, is all forward. They have a study going on and they want to participate. Sarasota County is in the process of determining whether they want to support a renourishment.
And Christopher, we only have a couple seconds left, but you've been trying to get answers from Sarasota County. What have you been told?
Well, we've been asking for a couple of interviews, and we did ask for somebody to come on to our roundtable as well from Sarasota County to discuss where they are on this whole issue. We've gotten a couple statements sent to us over the last several stories that we've done that all basically say the same thing, that they're looking into this, that they're working with residents, that if residents need help, they can call their 861-5000 line, which is the main line. But we haven't gotten anything very specific from the county.
Okay, why don't we hold on right there? We'll have more with our roundtable coming up. Welcome back. If you're joining us, we are discussing erosion on Minnesota Key with our roundtable. Dr. Ping Wang, a geosciences professor at the University of South Florida, Charles Miller, a homeowner on Minnesota Key, and ABC 7 reporter Christopher Brantley. And joining us by phone is U.S. Congressman for Florida's 13th Congressional District, David Jolly. And Congressman, I appreciate you calling in because you've been involved with this very issue in terms of Pinellas County, and how is it handled there?
Well, that's right. Hey, great to be with you. The way we handle beach erosion and beach renourishment or replenishment is actually a partnership between the federal government and what we call non-federal partners, in most cases counties or cities or municipalities, to cost share the replenishment of sand to replace what we lose during erosion and also during storms like Hermine.
Now, there's been a very specific calculation about what to do here in terms of what Pinellas County is doing, if you could explain that.
Sure. So Pinellas County is actually one of the very first federal beach renourishment programs, second only to North Carolina. It's going on nearly 50 years. And about every 5 years during the past 50 years, the federal government, together with Pinellas County, have partnered to replace much of the sand lost. And it used to be a politically easier issue. It is becoming more difficult in a fiscally austere environment to identify resources to replace lost sand. But at the end of the day, life and property are on the line of a fully developed coastline, and also our local economies. From Pinellas County to Sarasota throughout the Tampa Bay area, are local economies that are based on visitors coming to see the beautiful beaches and homeowners that continue to invest in our region.
Now, there is a lot of beach renourishment that is going on down here in Sarasota, Manatee, and Charlotte County, but at least Sarasota is hedging in terms of what it's doing in terms of Manasota Key. Have you dealt with situations or seen situations where the federal partners may be willing to pony up the funds, but the local authorities or the state authorities are not?
You know, I have. What I also have seen, frankly, we dealt with an issue in Pinellas County where a local condominium association had reservations about granting certain access rights to the federal government, and as a result, the renourishment passed them by. It does require a cost share, but it also requires a partnership legally between the federal government and a non-federal partner. Fortunately, in Pinellas County, we have embraced beach renourishment because we are a fully developed coastline. And so even right now, we are dealing with communities that are in need of sand, even before Hermine. We're also dealing with communities in the south part of our county, down around Tierra Verde, where the sand has actually filled in some navigable channels. And you know, sand moves, and I know you have guests tonight that can talk a little bit about that, but the fact is some communities need sand and some need to get rid of it. And this is an ongoing effort of the federal government's partnership with Pinellas County.
And Christopher, that has been the factor, what the congressman just said, at least in part of Manasota Key, that it was the homeowners who did not want the renourishing paid for by the government because they thought they would lose their beach access rights.
So what we found out is while we went down to Charlotte County and spoke to someone from Charlotte County who said, listen, we approached residents a few years back to say, your beach is going to need to be renourished. And at that period of time, the homeowners had said no. The large concern there is they didn't want to lose their access to their, what they would consider to be their private beach. They felt that if the federal government, if the state, if the county put in money to renourish their beach, that they would lose that as a private beach as their, under their homes.
And Dr. Wang, there's also been a debate, and Congressman Jolly referred to it in terms of look, money is tight these days, whether you're talking about local, state, or federal governments, and some of our viewers may be saying, why should there be any public funding for these projects? I mean, people who bought these homes had or should have known what they were buying, and that this problem is something that's been around for a very long time.
Well, along these, like I said earlier, along these coasts, the beach nourishment is really a solid solution. Many times it does work. I think, get back to your point, I believe the beach nourishment project first need to be done is what is called an erosion control line. I think some people has to give up easement. That line, after that line is established, then the next step would be to go find sand. I'm not very clear for this particular project where the sand could come from. And in Pinellas County area that I've done a lot of study, and it's fortunate that the Tampa Bay, mouth of Tampa Bay has a lot of sand, and many times that problem is easier to identify sand, where to get the sand from the mouth of Tampa Bay that supplies a lot of the sand nourishment in Pinellas County. I'm not clear where the sand may come from for these particular nourishment. That may be a question that needs to be answered.
Charles, when you have talked to local authorities about this, has there been any pushback in terms of because we are living in austere times, and there could be people out there just saying, hey, listen, buyer beware?
So not in Pinellas County, and here's why. And listen, I consider myself a conservative when it comes to fiscal issues. We have communities, particularly throughout Florida and Pinellas County, where they have been fully developed over decades. And what is at risk of failing to protect from erosion is both life and safety, but also property. So I often say, listen, if there is undeveloped coastline somewhere and a developer wishes to come in and build, we should not provide them a federal subsidy, and we should make that clear. But in communities throughout Florida that for histories have been on the coastline, we do have a responsibility at the federal level and local level to protect life and property. And so the reality is the share of local, the cost share for local governments has continued to grow. But as long as life and property are on the line, we do have an obligation to protect it. New developments, I don't think we need a federal policy at all, no federal subsidy. But for existing ones, we need to keep working.
And Charles, so what would you say to local officials? Because every time you've asked about this, you kind of get a, well, we're looking into it.
Well, I visited with the staff of Sarasota County, and they have been instructed by the commissioners to basically do a study. They gave what I would call a pre-study as to make some recommendations as to what the commissioners should do. And I believe the commissioners have that study, and I believe on October the 19th at 2 p.m. in Punta Gorda, they're going to have a joint meeting with Charlotte County.
Well, Dr. Wang, let me ask you this, because if you looked at some of the video in Christopher's story, it seemed like some of these homes are now teetering on the brink of disaster, and studies take time. How much time would homes in that condition have?
Well, not much. I mean, the water is in one of the video, the water is already under that person's house, and there's very little beach in front of it, and it's almost at the mercy of a storm, right? There's very little wiggle room.
Right. And Congressman Jolly, if I could just finish with you, because knowing different projects that the U.S. Corps of Engineers has been involved with, and they do fantastic work, but their resources are quite limited.
That's it.
Is the Army Corps, does it have enough resources to handle not only Manasota Key, but many communities that have this very same problem?
They don't, and we are working on that. We have a good partner in the Jacksonville Corps, but they always have to have the funds to do it, and an administration, frankly, that supports it. And there's some disagreement right now within the administration on beach renourishment. These projects have long lead times, from feasibility studies and environmental permitting, and then allocating the funds. And so, for instance, we're working in Pinellas to ask for extraordinary measures in the wake of Hermine to move up a fiscal year, the beach renourishment project here. The debate always in an environment of limited resources is this. We know if we spend more now on heavy infrastructure from jetties and other protective barriers that are environmentally sound, we might be able to save long-term costs and the need to continue to move sand every 4 or 5 years. The resources simply aren't there for some of the extraordinary measures and protective barriers that might be required. And then residents have concerns about changing the coastline with protective barriers as well. We live in Florida. Sand's always going to move. What we do with it is a great debate, both when it comes to fiscal policy as well as environmental policy.
And Christopher, you're dealing with folks on both sides of this issue.
Absolutely, and I want to point out the last 3 times that we have been out to Manasota Key to report this, both pre the storm, during the storm, and after the storm. I ran into Dr. Lin, who's the coastal engineer for Sarasota County. Very nice fellow who I know that you've worked with a couple times, Charles. But I've seen him out there studying this, watching this closely, and to the point of timing for each house. I think every house is just a little bit different. But I'll tell you, over the last several months of me reporting this story, just going out to your house, Charles, to Harry Artz's house, to Betty Gothrop's house, every time I'm out there, just about, the water is a little bit closer.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Congressman Jolly, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. And we'll have final thoughts from our roundtable in a moment, but when we come back, we'll bring you our latest weather forecast. Welcome back. We are discussing erosion issues plaguing Manasota Key with our roundtable. And Dr. Wang, what are the questions that are being raised here based upon what you're hearing in terms of at least the Sarasota County portion of Manasota Key about what's taking so long?
Yeah, from a technical point of view, when you nourish a beach, you first identify the beach is eroding severely, which I believe the answer is pretty obvious. Then the next question would be, where can we get the sand to put on the beach? I wonder if that is the part from a technical point of view that's holding. Of course, funding is as important, and even if you have funding, you still have to find a place to get the sand, and without any negative environmental impact. So the sand source research may be an issue, I would guess. Maybe next time, when we communicate with the county and the agencies and get into a little more detail other than funding, rather than, what aspect of the process is it holding up.
What range is on the average is taken in? I mean, we have renourishment projects around here all the time, but is there a limit to how far economically that the sand could be transported?
Well, I guess that's based on part of the study would be a cost and benefits analysis, right? So whoever that does the study have to analyze the cost and the benefits, and that would come into the cost and benefit analysis.
So
if it's too far, maybe the cost and benefit ratio is not feasible.
Right. So Charles, tell us a little bit about the road you have been on when you have tried to get help.
Well, actually, Sarasota County was very, very helpful in getting us an emergency permit. We got that immediately. We asked for the large bags. We got that approval. The real problem with the process is that was right after Hurricane or the Tropical Storm Colin. That was in June. It's 90 days later. We finally got the DEP approval, and now we're still waiting for the Florida Fish and Wildlife to put down the large bags to protect our property.
But basically,
so that's a temporary measure.
Yeah, that's exactly. When you have said, look, the homes along here are becoming increasingly endangered, have you gotten any
No,
answer?
I think it's part of, I've tried to raise this with the commissioners even today, for them to take a look at their comprehensive plan, to probably try to maybe delegate that down to staff. Because under the comprehensive plan, any revetment has to go to approval of the Sarasota County Commissioners. Again, that's a 4-month process by itself.
We should note here, finally, that we tried very hard to get the county to participate in this broadcast, and we were met basically with crickets.
Pretty much. But, the county will say that they are working with residents. They're working to solve the issue. They've given the permits to have the sandbags out there. A lot of the residents, as you've been saying, Charles, this is a temporary measure with those sandbags. They want to see a more permanent solution. The county's basically saying, look, this takes years to go through. It takes years to find the money, to find the correct plan to renourish a beach. We're working on it.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. I want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. Dr. Ping Wang is a professor of geosciences at the University of South Florida. Charles Miller, a homeowner on Manasota Key. And Christopher Brantley is a reporter here at ABC7.